So let's come back to customers though, because I think that's such a fascinating kind of end of the story. I mean, and it really is a theme throughout the whole book, right? Why serving shareholders doesn't actually win for shareholders, and things about you talk about cumulative advantage, which I've always thought was a fascinating concept, and goes right back to, in theory, you know, we have the resource-based view of the firm and how there's these time-dependent factors that come in, and the power of habit.
Yes.
So maybe you could expand on that a bit, because I think that's counterintuitive to a lot of people. And a lot of people, I think buying behavior is all about the latest shiny object, right? And you kind of make the counteroffer.
Yes. And also people they think there's two things that I think are mistaken, that buying is about the shiny object, and that loyalty is this conscious thing called loyalty is the most important thing. And Fred Reichold is a friend of mine, NPS. You know, he's and we've had I've been on his podcast about this, which is, I think his principle is correct, but the driver behind it is a little bit different than perhaps is imagined. And that is that the mind, kind of the key thing in here is the mind is sort of like an iceberg. The 5% that you can see above the water is your conscious reactions, you consciously saying, Tide has done such a great job for me in doing my wash for the past 20 years. I'm loyal to Tide. It turns out that, and the behavioral research is sort of really clear on this, it turns out that it's much less about that than Tide is your habit. And when you walk down the aisle and to buy a detergent, it's almost as though your subconscious is screaming at you, Rita, you know what we do now, right? We dump the Tide bottle into our cart. We don't think, don't go near that Purcell. No. I'm not comfortable. Like the mind, the subconscious really loves and seeks out comfort and familiarity. So if something has worked for you before, it tells you in a relatively overpowering way, do that thing again. Now, if there's no Tide on the shelf because it's out of stock, because you've done a crummy job on your supply chain, the subconscious will sort of give in and say, oh yeah, we got to wash our clothes with something, so try that new thing. But otherwise they say no. So it turns out that advantage is cumulative. All right. If I have gotten you in a habit of buying the same thing over and over. I do work for Ford Motor Company, and it's almost as though F-150 drivers at a certain point in the cycle of the vehicle almost just sort of can't prevent themselves from walking into the Ford dealership and saying, I want another one of those, because it's a habit. They don't say, now I have to think back, I think here, should I buy a Ram or a Silverado or a Tundra? It's sort of like, no, you have that cumulative advantage. Mm-hmm. And why that's important is that companies can break those things up in ways. I don't know if it irritates the hell out of you too, Rita, but I have my favorite apps, right? And every once in a while, the clever people at the app will do a quote refresh that puts all the buttons in different places and the navigation differently, and it's all for my benefit, right? And I absolutely hate it. And so the last time, so I always used to use cbssports.com. That was my go-to sports app. The last time they did a major upgrade, I think my subconscious was so mad because I could no longer navigate easy. I had to learn it. I said, okay, time out. Now's the time for me to reassess all the sports app and pick the one that I want to go with. And so now you will see on my home screen, ESPN.com. So they lost me while they were trying to serve me better by interrupting my habit. Does that mean you should never refresh your software? No, but I would argue that you should do it in 10 little steps rather than one big one.